What's happening, people? Back with another reaction, back with some more Gyllene Tider, and we're returning to the 1980s self-titled album. Thank you, as always, to Jeebus, as well as everyone else who's been commenting along the way. And the next track, according to Google Translate, means From Telephone. I'm guessing that's a bit of a clumsy translation, even if the essence of the phrase is more or less accurate. I would expect a more idiomatic or lyrical translation to be something like by telephone, through the telephone, on the telephone. But yes, my prediction is that it would relate to a conversation or learning some information from telephone. Of course, that could be totally off, and maybe the translation isn't actually correct even in a general sense. Nevertheless, I don't speak Swedish, so I'll have to wait for people to provide insight in the comments below, but let's give it a listen. This is Gyllene Tider, and again, according to Google Translate, this means roughly from telephone. Another fun tune. Make sure it's over. See, you gotta be careful with these guys. But yes, another fun tune. I'm intrigued. Like, in one way, it still has a bit of a rock and roll feel, especially that guitar solo in the latter half, and just in general. But again, we do hear that keyboard. It wasn't quite a trill, because there was like a tonal shift up and down, but it was very constant, and it was very prominent throughout pretty much the entire tune. So it gave it a bit of a different flavor than just like a straight away rock and roll tune where it's, you know, guitar, bass, and like edgy vocals. So yeah, it had a bit more of a complicated sonic palette, including in the vocals. Now, again, Pear's vocals here, he sounds very young, though I have to say, like, more than some of the tracks we've heard so far, this feels like vocals he would do in a Roxette song. It just, he sounds younger, like his voice sounds younger, but, you know, a bit of rasp, a bit of scratch here and there, like, you know, some passionate singing, but he's not, like, belting the house down. It just feels very much like vocals I've come to know from Pear, even if his voice sounds more youthful than on some later Roxette material. But those supporting vocals, they had a bit of a like, what's the right word? Like, not theater, but like musical. They sounded a bit like a musical, like, you know, there's a chorus and, you know, female voices backing him up and so on. And I wonder, like, number one, if they're in like a dialogue or if they're just kind of supporting the song, like just literally like backing vocals. And I almost thought for a moment, and in no way would I say this sounds like an ABBA tune, but something about the vocals, you know, with the lead vocal and the supporting vocals and, you know, a bit of a keyboard sound with the rock sound. There's some ABBA songs I've heard where, like, you know, if you change the voices here, I wouldn't be terribly surprised. Now, again, I don't know if that's like, you know, a dirty word. Like, when I've gone through Ace of Base, and again, that's a different sound, you know, more than a decade ahead of this, but I found that, like, people who like certain Swedish groups seem to be very, like, resistant to any comparisons. Like, you know, some people would comment, like, oh, you know, Ace of Base, you know, they kind of had, like, oh, 2 females, 2 males, you know, lots of vocal combinations and so on. They're trying to be ABBA. And then Ace of Base fans be like, no, like, they in no way sound like ABBA. So I don't mean to offend anyone's sensibilities, but for some reason this tune felt like it could be an ABBA song if it was tweaked a little bit, and of course, if the voices were different. But nevertheless, I enjoyed the rock and roll sounds, and again, like, there was still a bit of a rawness to it, but less so than some of the stuff we've heard already, and again, with a more dynamic and, like, let's say dramatic type of sound with those supporting vocals. So again, I don't know what to make of it lyrically. I look forward to any insights people will have. But another fun tune. I feel like, you know, I've said that about a lot of the Roxette catalog. They just make fun songs. Certainly some that are heavier and, you know, sadder and with a more complicated emotional feeling. But a lot of their tunes just have this buoyancy and fun to them. And even though this might be a bit grittier, a bit more rock and roll sounding, the Gyllene Tider material is coming across as very fun, though again, a bit more opaquely as I do not speak Swedish. So in any case, let me know what you think, and I will see you for the next one. Peace.